values. That's what values are. Values are that gravitational base rhythm that help you to go out and explore, try out a different, sport, or try out perhaps a new adventure, maybe a dance class or a relationship or people, friends, whatever. But then as long as you have a strong foundational value, or perhaps even rhythms of life, so routines is also that base rhythm, right? Those are the gravitational forces that we need, and if we're not super clear with them, we can get lost.
All right, welcome back, Wellness Ninjas, to another episode of the Wellness Dojo podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Craik, and so excited to have my man Julien here. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, Kyle. What a privilege. We had a nice little chance to catch up and chat, but looking forward to doing this formally in front of an audience.
Yeah, I know, recorded conversations,
right?
Yeah. No, I'm really excited. There's a lot that I'm curious about getting into with you. But first of all, for my audience who maybe doesn't know you or hasn't met you yet, can you tell them a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Julien Lepage. I am a registered social worker. I've got my master's degree in social work leadership. I'm also a professional musician. I grew up playing in bands when I was young on the farm in St. Denis, Saskatchewan, and did everything from touring, recording, and session drumming. Lots of fun that way. When I moved to Calgary, I had the opportunity to bridge my passion for music and my profession as a social worker by creating drum circles. And so now I own an organization called Circles of Rhythm, which is a integrated community drum circle business. So what does that mean? It means I just bring drumming to the corporate workplace for team building. I run a community circle every week on Friday. It's not just me. We have an incredible crew of facilitators, volunteers, and people who help every single week. And we get anything between 70 to 120, 150 people drumming every Friday. And then, we do it for schools, senior centers, all this kind of things. And then also, I just recently took the step towards opening my private clinic. So I have this private home-based clinic called Castle Wellness. And Castle Wellness is one where I can offer, regulated health services for people who are looking for therapy, counseling, guiding, things like that. But a little bit about kind of what brought me there. So I had 10 years with Alberta Health Services, some years with the non-for-profit organizations. And then also most recently, I just finished 3.5 years with a private mental health clinic that was kind of doing novel mental health treatment, treating people with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma, first responders, police, ambulance, fire, that kind of stuff. And also there was a private side that would treat people who could pay with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And also we did health-regulated, all above board with Government of Canada, like Health Canada approval with psychiatry, psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. So I've kind of been at the forefront of mental health innovation from a music standpoint, but also with drumming, right? And also with the medicine standpoint. And mental health for 16 years, and but I'd say that most of all what I've been doing and who I am is I'm a human scientist, and my best subject is myself.
I love that. I love that. And I love that this idea of finding these two passions in life almost and molding them together. We were talking about this before we started recording with myself and martial arts, and that's essentially kind of what I've done with my martial arts as well, as taken what was it about this that gave me that made me who I am, that gave me my strengths and my values and my beliefs even, and how can I use that to help other people, which sounds like what you've kind of done with music as well.
Absolutely. I'm curious with martial arts, like what sort of values would be kind of your go-to? I'm a fan of values. What would be some values? Yeah,
no, I appreciate the question. So I mean, big things like determination is a really big one. I think just like hard work and grit is a really big one that's instilled. But other ones that maybe people wouldn't expect from martial arts in particular, being especially an individualized sport, where you're going up, you're competing by yourself. It's like you versus you, but community has just been massive throughout it. Just and what community really means to me, it was really shaped by martial arts in terms of, these are people who will like punch you in the face and knock you down, but they're also the first people to pick you back up and be like, okay, how do we avoid that next time and help you get better.
Wow.
And then empathy is another just like really big one that I learned through that process as well.
I love that. Grit, community, empathy, hard work, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
For me, my values that really guide me and really guide specifically the Friday Night Drum Circle, which is where we met, is safety.
Love that.
And I think from a trauma in the nervous system, so I think for us, when we don't feel safe, when we feel kind of, whether we are aware of it, and I think safety is an interesting word, because sometimes we're like, well, I'm a man, I should feel safe in every situation, whatever it is. But I think anytime that we find ourselves kind of get a little bit more rigid, or the body kind of creates a sense of like a response, even if somebody says something that looks weird, or maybe there's somebody walking and I'm just like, oh, there's a interesting energy with that person. That's like, that right away activates like the primal nervous system part of ourselves, like that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, right? And so for me, safety is probably a number one value, and then respect for me as a dad. So you're a father of three. I'm a father of three as well. I've got twins that are 13, boy and a girl, and then my youngest is 10. Yours are 14.
14, 11, and 8.
11 and 8,
yeah.
right? So similar ages, right?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, they're testing, right? They want to know, what can they get away with? I don't know about your kids, but my kids certainly do.
Yeah.
And so respect is a big one in our family. And one of my friends was over on the weekend. We were having kind of a little family breakfast with the kids and my buddies, and he's like, what I really like about your parenting style is that, your kids respect you, but you respect them. Like, you speak to them with respect. And I think that's easier said than done, but I think I really do try to have a pretty honest and authentic expression with everyone. I think that's another one of my values, is authenticity. So
yeah, that's so cool. And I'm the same, where I think it's so important that we empower our kids, right? It's not necessarily that when we think about leadership, when we think about trying to be that person that, even the man in their life that shows them the things, I've learned to take a step back, because I've learned that it's a lot less about how do I teach you, how do I show you, and more about like, how do I listen more to you and help you get to where you want to go.
Man, and that's tough. Like to listen, especially because I think there's this behind in the brain, there's this story, right? Society has told us that it needs to look a specific way. You're a dad now. There's all these responsibilities and these things that you have to do, and even the kids have this story. I was kind of, my daughter's like, Dad, I can't throw or catch a ball very well, because you've never really taken me out, throwing balls. But I'm like, yeah, I've never been a very sporty kind of guy, but you come and you have access to music and instruments, and we talk about emotions. We have beautiful conversations, and many parents may not have that. So there was a lot of judgment of like, man, am I a bad dad? I'm not taking them out throwing the ball.
Yeah.
That said, though, just this weekend we were playing some volleyball together, and she's like, Dad, you're actually good at this. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean,
you're like, damn, I'm actually good at this.
Right, exactly, right? So there's never one thing, but I think one thing that really kind of surprises me, and maybe this ties it into the drumming for me, is that we have this kind of these stories about how we need to live and how we're supposed to move forward, but a lot of times that's what they are. It's just stories. And they can grab our attention and away from what's actually already here and what we're actually already doing, and can create like very serious things such as depression, anxiety, challenges, things like that. And I know you talk a lot about that on your channel, and I love that, because I think we need to be aware of like, hang on a second, we're doing this complex, dynamic, ever-evolving, ever-changing thing called living. It's never constant. It's always changing. Plus, we are trying to, have perhaps friendships and romantic relationships and children and parents and family and work and careers and for us to do that well, we have to kind of be able to balance kind of the stories that have shaped us and separate them to the story that we want to shape for ourselves. And I think with martial arts, what you were sharing with me earlier is that art of flow, to be able to kind of just move and just like you were saying in a sparring situation, somebody kind of threw something and you're like, how did I know to move this way and kind of do a counter move that way? I would consider that as flow. Is that, what would you call it?
Yeah, I would call that flow state, right?
Yeah.
It's that and one of the best definitions I've heard that resonated with me the most with flow state was it's like the perfect balance between skill level and challenge, right? It's something that's challenging you just enough that your skills can still take part. Whereas like if you got up against like a really bad mismatch, you get into this like panic state. You're like, you're getting your ass kicked. You're just like, you don't know where to move. But when you can find yourself in that flow state, it's like, you're not thinking about the next move because you're just in it. I think that I've been learning more as I've been on kind of my spiritual journey is like, that is like that state of being where you're not thinking, you're separating the thoughts and like the future and the past, and you're just like, you're in the moment and you can't be anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that component of that you're perfectly matched between kind of the level of your skill and the level of challenge. Like at any moment you could mess up. I'm going to try my best not to swear. You can mess up and fall flat on your face, you know, but also you're kind of not. You're kind of like, you're kind of doing amazing. You're like, whoa, like how is this even happening? Right? That for me is like the flow state. And I think drumming can bring us there, but I believe that the flow state can be actually, in fact, I encourage people to push themselves and step towards the discomfort or the fear of life, of living. Because let's face it, in order for me to accomplish anything that is that I'm perhaps have an intrinsic level of pride, not external, but intrinsic. I need to really push myself and be like, yo, I did that. Like, for example, this podcast, you know, you're like, man, like I'm actually pushing myself. I'm putting myself out there. I'm more vulnerable, you know, like that's your edge. And if you go a little bit further, perhaps it might feel like you'll go flat on your face, fall. I don't know about you, but that's certainly how it feels for me. Certain times, certain things that I do. And so I think that's life, is like if we can find, almost like we're a surfer riding the edge of the wave. I don't actually surf, but I'm guessing it's like you're trying to go as high as you can on the top of the wave or at the edge of the wave. And then, but also you have to continue that momentum, continue to like move and carve with whatever is there. And it's constantly changing, constantly moving, right? So I think that flow state is possible through martial arts, through drumming, because for example, drummers, you'll start a rhythm and you start in your head and you're kind of thinking things, but then at one point in time, perhaps the monkey mind will turn off, and then your hands will just kind of be moving, and you'll be like, whoa, this sounds really good, and you're kind of like surprised by it, but also as soon as you think about it, you'll lose it. Right? And then, so it's like, you kind of have to be really in the moment. It like forces you to be mindful. Did you find that?
Yeah, I have. I was just going to say like that whole concept of stepping outside your comfort zone, that was me coming to the drumming circle for the first time. And
what brought you there in the first place?
My girlfriend brought me there.
Oh, nice.
And then it was funny because like there's always the opportunity you can like kind of get up and move at the end and stuff. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna. But then she,
it's
like,
not for me.
She kind of like pulled me in, right? And
that's cool.
Then you get up there and you're like, you're just like what you said. You're kind of in the moment. But another thing that was really cool that I found was intentionally trying to kind of like find your own rhythm within everybody else's rhythm, and then coming back to it and stuff. And that practice, it almost feels. Not almost. It feels very meditative in that sense of you're like allowing yourself to venture off, but then pulling yourself back, and you've got this like base rhythm that does it, and that's just super cool.
Values. That's what values are. Values are that gravitational base rhythm that help you to go out and explore, try out a different, sport, or try out perhaps a new adventure, maybe a dance class or a relationship or people, friends, whatever. But then as long as you have a strong foundational value, or perhaps even rhythms of life, so routines is also that base rhythm, right? Those are the gravitational forces that we need. And if we're not super clear with them, we can get lost, and it's quite dangerous. I've found myself lost many times, right? Because I haven't been nurturing my values. I haven't been nurturing my life's rhythms. And it can be anything from a structure routine. So getting up, getting dressed, eating a proper breakfast, stretching recently, movement is a big thing. Stretching, strengthening if you can, if your body allows you to do that. And then just kind of like something else. But those are kind of like those foundational things, right? So just to do that every single day. The values as well, right? So to have that base rhythm to kind of go away. I know that I've got my values, I've got my rhythm over here, but I can go and try something else, and then I can come back home and be like comfortable there. And like you said, like to be able to do that and intentionally, because you're choosing. Like, okay, I've got this basic thing like, and that's like, you can do that for a while. It's kind of fun, groovy, but after a while, it kind of gets old.
Yeah,
kind of like life. I get bored. So then I want to move away from that, but also if I go away from that, I can lose myself, or I can lose track of the rhythms of life, right? And many times in my life have I lost track of the rhythms of life. But thank goodness that I've got these strong rhythms that come back. And perhaps I'll forget for a little while, but I'll remember right away. Oh, right, wasn't doing this. I wasn't doing my meditation. I wasn't doing my mindfulness. I wasn't connecting with friends. I wasn't going out and doing walks. Going out and connecting with nature, for me, that's a big one. And so I find that those metaphors, for example, in martial arts, you've got this flow, these basic forms, you know what I mean? These, what do you call them? Are they katas?
Yeah, we call them forms or katas.
Katas, yeah. Right? So you've got these basic katas that you teach. And one of the things I appreciated about one of the videos I saw about you is like, you've done your training, trust your training and go and have fun. Like go flow. You're talking to kids, have fun. But also, I think life should be fun. It should be playful. That's one of the things I'm coming back to. Do you play enough?
Do I play enough? I would say probably not.
Yeah.
But I'm learning to. I'm like relearning. It's the same. I love what you said about like the rhythm of life and the values being that kind of that bass drum almost that brings you back every time, because it's so true. Because I mean, we're all, I think, so plagued by this question of like, who am I? Like, who am I? What is, and even now with, like, we've both mentioned authenticity a few times already. It's almost becoming like a buzzword. This, like, being authentic, right?
Yeah.
And I think I say that in meaning that I think a lot of people don't understand, like, there's a pressure on it now. They're like, I have to be my most authentic self. How do I find that version of myself?
You've already failed once you're feeling pressure.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about, that nervous system, that safety. We need to learn how to regulate ourselves, not to get too worried about it, but just to find that piece of flow, right? So keep going. So you're talking about authenticity, talking about values.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think we feel so much pressure on that, just that big question of who am I? I know I felt that in my life for sure, where, going through separation and stuff like that too, you're so tied to certain identities and roles that sometimes when those identities or roles go away, now you're like, now, like, what do I do now? Like, that's my whole, like, identity is gone now. So who am I really? But I think the values, when you can come back to those values, that's what it was for me.
Values, for sure, yes. One of the weird and tricky parts about values, and so as a therapist, we use this one thing. It's called acceptance and commitments theory, and it's a values-based ideology, similar to like CBT and maybe DBT. People might have heard of those, but one of the things that's interesting is that different values will speak more loudly, or perhaps have a little bit more power in different situations. So a lot of times people are like, trust, family, respect, this, that, the other thing. But in different situations, for example, like a separation, perhaps the value of like being strong, or the value of being like determined, maybe that's what kept you in the relationship, right? It's like that determination, and then maybe it kind of lasted a really long time, and we overstay our welcome in that relationship. I don't know, and I'm not here to say one thing or another. I think it's different for every person, but I think the thing is that our values never go away, but perhaps it's time for us to place one a little bit higher on the hierarchy of our own individual needs. So for example, I'm guessing in the state of transformation and changing. You've got kids, you got family, you got this identity thing, like who am I, authenticity. Perhaps rest is a value.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps silence and stillness, doing nothing, can be a very important thing to do, because I don't know about you, but I'm a human doing more than a human being oftentimes, right? Do, next thing, 100%. Right? Why? Well, as the masculine energy within us, I think a lot of times we get our value from what we do and not who we are. Or, or we are like, oh, look at what I did, so then I must mean I'm a good person, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And
look what I achieved.
Yeah, right. And I think that takes away, that's again playing with that dance of authenticity and the pressure. So I think the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is that everything is changing all the time. And when I think I've got my authenticity and then I'm like, oh, am I being authentic? I gotta put pressure on being authentic. I'm doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. Oh, so that's even more confusing. So what is it that we're trying to do then? Well, I think it's back to that flow. Finding the edge of my own discomfort. Well, how do I find an edge of discomfort? Because all I want to do is be comfortable being myself. So Well, what you have to do is you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and then find yourself in those moments by paying attention, using principles of mindfulness, listening, speaking, connecting, being authentic, and also feeling. I find that there's such a somatic element that somatic means like it's in the body. The body speaks first before you can understand it. And so oftentimes people only really get connected to the somatic once they've got like a severe panic attack and they're like, my body's like, I feel like I'm going to die. And it's like, okay, well, that's your body saying you got to listen to it a little bit, right? And so I think authenticity and just doing it right, I think we got to turn off that monkey mind a little bit and just be able to be more present, putting ourselves in situations that feel like it's a little bit outside of our comfort zone, choosing, right? We're intentional. So for example, okay, like, don't really want to go to the drum circle, but my girlfriend's there. I kind of want to impress her. And I'm not saying that's your story, so fine, I'll do it. It's kind of weird, like, what are we doing? And then all of a sudden she's like, come up, let's go dance. You're like, oh my gosh, here I am at this drum circle. I'm already past my comfort zone. Do I really want to stand up and move my body? Okay, fine, I'll do it. And then you do it and you're like, whoa, you've unlocked another level.
Yeah.
But how many barriers or how many hurdles have you had to go over every single time to get you to that place? And that's hard.
Yeah. And I think curiosity is a really big piece of that too, right? Where when you are approaching anything, whether it's like stretching your comfort zone or whatever it might be, curiosity is so important, I think. Even in terms of trying to understand other people and like opening the door to more community, like a drumming circle where you've got a lot of different people there, like people from all different walks of life and stuff, right? Totally. And it's like this idea of just allowing yourself, first of all, to be curious about trying those types of things, and then getting curious about every other person that's in there.
So I'm curious. Is it okay if I cut you off?
Yeah.
I'm curious. What was it like first time you came in? So describe to me first time, Friday night drum circle. You're coming to this thing. What did you observe? Like, you talked about all different walks of life, all different things. What was it like for you? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it was pretty incredible. Like, I'm pretty open to trying new things. Sure. Like I am, like, I didn't feel like I was stretching my comfort zone a ton going. Sure. But yeah, I definitely didn't know like what to expect really when I came in. So I just remember walking in, it's like finding the chair, and then
was there a rhythm going already when you were walking in the door?
I don't think so.
Okay, it was quiet.
No, my girlfriend was like, we got to get there early so we can pick our drums.
Yeah, cool.
Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's good advice.
But yeah, then I came in and I got like a drum bath when I first came in. And
cool.
So I just like closed my eyes and like just really tried to like set an intention for myself.
That's cool.
And then, yeah, just like when it started, like I'll tell you what I was like most surprised about.
Sure.
Which was just the energy that I felt from it. Like, it was so cool to, and then feel the different energies too. Like, you have this like real, like, I found myself getting into this real masculine energy at certain times. It was like just banging like the frame drum.
Yeah.
Just like,
warrior,
boom,
like
boom, just like hitting it like as hard as I could at certain times. And then you go through these like kind of the more feminine energy too, where it's like softer and you're like
nurturing, calm,
kind of just trying
resting.
to calm, resting, trying to like get into that more meditative state. So I was really impressed and I guess slightly surprised by just the amount of energy I was able to feel through the room.
Thank you for sharing that. And so for those people who don't know what a drum bath is, or we call it a drum wash, or essentially you're using North American indigenous drums. And this is not based on any kind of ethno-specific way of drumming. We acknowledge all different ways of knowing, all different ways of drumming, all wisdoms, teachings, and things like that. And we really honor, here we're in North America, First Nations indigenous ways of knowing and their teachings. And we use a drum that is similar to that. But we actually use drums that are meant to be, you can play them hard, and they're weather resistant. Here we are in Calgary, they're made by Remo, and they do have a beautiful sound. So there's this primal thing that happens, right? You talk about energy. Like, we've been drumming for thousands of years. Before we could even speak language and get organized as a society from a primal standpoint, like rhythm was the first method of communication. Then it came like more intonation and song. And then after that, we started kind of putting like syllables and sounds together to create language. So that's like a very primal way of communicating. When you talk about energy, that energy of like, just like that warrior, that masculine, that like getting it done, kind of releasing, gathering, celebrating even, right? That's like very important. Like I asked the question, do you play enough? Well, kind of something I'm working on. Me too, right? And I find that drumming kind of automatically pops you into 100%. That place of play. 100%. You don't need to think about it. Do you ever go to a concert and you're like, you see the band and you're like, that drummer looks like they're having so much fun. I want to do that,
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Now you can, right? And then that diversity. So all walks of life. In that room, there's kids, there's seniors, there's, all sorts of different ways of knowing, all genders, all ways of like cultural backgrounds and things like that. And spiritualities, I'm sure. But the drum does the talking. We're not talking about Trump. We're not talking politics today. But, and that's the coolest part is that the drum does the talking. Thank goodness, right? Because, man, do we not know how to tolerate another opinion outside of our own, right? Which is so crazy. That's one of the reasons why I like drumming, is that it helps us to really connect from like the human perspective. And then, so to have that big energy, that celebration, but also, oh, wow. When we soften the energy, and like you said an intention. So you've been kind of on this spiritual path for a little while. I'm going to come back to that. So let's come back to that in a second. But more of that introspective, nurturing, feminine energy of just like going inside. So there's like the outside of ourselves. If you really want to, from a scientific level, you can go as far as you can into the universe and you'll never get the end. There's infinity in this direction, but also there's infinity in this direction as well within our cellular structure. We're limited by the instruments of measurement, right? We can always measure smaller. And right now we have kind of reached our limit, and science will continue to grow and expand, and we'll be able to see even more smaller things and see things that are, you can't see with the eye. But that's what the feminine energy thing I think does, is gives us that permission to kind of go introspectively and feel the body and get back into the way of being instead of doing, right? The doing is the masculine, being is the feminine. We need both, and we have both as men and women. It doesn't matter. So yeah, absolutely. What a cool thing. Spirituality. Tell me, what did, cause you set an intention. You don't need to share that intention, but if you feel comfortable, it would be interesting. And what does intention setting play? Like, what role does intention setting play in your overall sense of spirituality?
Okay, so the first thing I'll say, I don't know if I can remember the exact intention I set on the first time I went, but what I can say is a lot of times when I'm there, my intention is, like, I find myself coming back to what you mentioned before of like being a a human doer and not a human being. Like,
just to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
I'd
just
be here now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just allow myself to be here now. Don't think about the to-do list. Don't think about the things I'm trying to accomplish in life right now, or how far I am from
Give
this.
yourself a bit of moment of rest, taking a break. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's oftentimes
Those are good intentions.
what I'm coming in for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question,
Kind
but
of. Yeah.
yeah, but that's kind of been my spiritual journey, though. Just since like we talked about, like we've both been through like long-term relationships that ended, and I think just when that happens, like I know for myself personally, like I definitely went into a darkness, and it was like this darkness of like, if this isn't what I'm meant for, like I don't know what I'm meant for, right? And that can be that's a scary place to be. But I talk about like within that darkness is like it finally gave me the chance to. It's like I always talk about how like I've fought for everything, right? Young dad, we both were. So like we can resonate with that with each other. Is like when you're a young parent like that, like your mind goes into survival mode pretty quick. At least for me, it did. Where I'm like, I have to provide, I have to fight for this, I have to make this work, and kind of going into that darkness, it kind of forced me to stop fighting for the first time, or at least fighting for what life was supposed to be, or like what my expectations were, and I started fighting for what do I have right now? Who do I actually want to be? For the first time, I was able to see that and start to look at that.
I think that's a really important thing to highlight, is that sometimes those darkest moments, when we step into that pain, whether it's depression or anxiety or just the loss of a relationship or the transformation of something that we thought our identity was all there, and then poof, it disappears, or it's crumbling right in front of our eyes, no matter how hard we're trying to keep it together. Those are hard moments, but also, those are hard moments, and they are the moments that, whether we like it or not, will change us. It's either going to change us or it's going to take us out. And I think the people who out there who are currently struggling, maybe a good question to be curious about is, how much am I fighting, hanging on to what I think is my identity or my authenticity of who I am, who my ego is telling me I am. Oof, ouch. That's interesting. And am I prepared to let that go? That's scary. Right? That's the safety. Do I feel safe enough within my own self to trust that I have everything inside of me, that I will create a version of me, or that I will come out of this darkness in a version of me that I do not yet know, but also I am ready to embrace myself differently. And as a kid, we do that automatically. We don't think about it. As a young parent, so that you did it automatically as well, because it's pretty obvious. I've got a kid, this thing is kind of relying on me, so I have no choice. But then once you kind of get past those moments of like no choice, and you're still faced with the darkness, for me anyways, there's a lot of resentment. Oh, why me? Oh, you know, like, why is this so hard?
Why is this happening to
me? And it's the ego. Like, that doesn't want to change.
So describe the ego to me.
Oh, I mean, for me, the way I understand the ego today, and it's going to change, and I'm probably not going to do a good justice of it right now, but for me, it's the part of me that is attached to the material realm. So the material realm is labels like a father, a man, a friend, money, career, my pride, what other people think of me,
or what we think other people think of us.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. All of that, right? And oftentimes the ego is very sneaky, because it can help me feel great, and so. For me personally, my first work with ego is about like, oh, hang on a second. You got to take yourself down a notch a little bit here. Okay, cool. Easy to do. But also the ego shows up in your pain. What? It says your pain is special. It's more difficult than anyone else around here in the world. And so there's this thing where it's like, you are special, 100%. You're special, buddy. I'm special. Everyone's special. But also, we're not that special. And so the ego can show up in that painful place saying, yes, your pain is special, it's hard. 100% empathy, we need that. But also, it's not that special. Like, you are part of this bigger, more ever-evolving, ever-changing system. And so just do your part and let yourself kind of embrace the change that is there instead of fighting it. And when I fight it, it's usually a result of trying to protect something that I thought was me, which is ego.
Yeah.
And a piece of identity that is not necessarily, it's like, it's an attachment out of comfort, out of like, but I like this about me. And then it goes away. And then you're like, who am I without this? That's ego.
Yeah.
Right? So, also, again, like I said, I'm going to miss a lot of pieces, but I feel like ego is attached to things that we do not own. Life, any of this material realm. And so I'm a big fan of like the thought of like, we are humans, we're human beings having a spiritual experience, you know what I mean? So I think we need that experience of the ego in order for us to really understand and come back to what does the spirit need, and what can it create, and how can it be more at peace, and perhaps nurture that voice inside of me that is like really fighting this whole thing. Like I'm fighting the whole way there until I realize, oh, I'm fighting right now. Let go, lean in, trust, surrender, right? And so the world of psychedelics can really help us kind of get there quickly, but also I'm also kind of afraid that a lot of people are jumping into this work either without proper guidance or proper preparation. And there's a lot of damage that can happen, and people can get quite lost. For example, like Jim Carrey, and like, I don't know if he had the field of psychedelics there, but, for a time you saw I don't know if have you ever heard him speak? Yeah. He was lost. Yeah. He was in the truth 100% with the questions of ego, but also there was this stark emptiness of nothingness, and nothing matters. You don't matter. I don't matter. Nothing matters. Oof. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah. There's the famous, he's like on the red carpet or at some award show or something, and they're asking him like, what does it feel like to be here? And he's like, well, isn't that such a ridiculous question? Yeah.
Which is true, but also we're here. Yeah. So how can we embrace it and enjoy it? And that's the flow. Yeah. Back to the flow. Is that it doesn't matter. I'm on the edge. I'm probably going to fall flat on my face. I may make mistakes, whatever. I might as well push myself and see what I'm capable of, and seeing where I show up. And like, find that edge. And then most of all is like, I have to, I get to do it for me, right? I get to do it for the experience of just doing it for me, not to get the approval of the medal or the approval of my kids or my partner, but just for me, because I want to, I choose to, I'm intentional about it. And so I think that the drumming for me helps me to reconnect with that every week, of saying, noticing, oh, that's my ego, that's my voice, that is attached to labels. And then can I just suspend that and just be me right now? And me right now is different than it was yesterday, and it's going to be different tomorrow. And again, this is the confusing part, but also it's the beautiful part, is that we feel like we are constant because we're in this body that's kind of changing slowly. Yeah. But I think as people are older, they realize, no, we're not constant at all. In the moment you feel like you're constant. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Got really existential.
I like it. I like it. No, it sounds like the ego is almost like this idea of a being. Like it's like an idea of being, and it's, I think too, people often are like, I have to get rid of my ego. When I think the reality is, and you can tell me if you disagree or agree with this, but I think the reality is the ego is not going anywhere. It's going to be a part of you. It's there. How do we learn to coexist with it? And almost like, how do we learn to play within it? Right? How do we learn to even use the ego in a healthy way to teach us about ourselves, because I think that's really what it is.
Absolutely. Right? My girlfriend, she says the ego is your coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
love that.
I was like, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I think, yeah, exactly. Just, I think every situation will require a different level of awareness and choices. The point is, can I find the ego in every single one of those choices? And have my eyes on it. I see you. I know what you're saying. I know what you want. I know what you need. Mm-hmm. Right? The ego needs. So, for example, to do well, this, that. And I appreciate that. And it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay for me to feel that way. It's okay for me to have this desire, the empathy towards myself, that ego part. But instead of it being the first person that speaks, the first element that guides my choices, it's like I said, maybe a passenger on the train. For example, I have many parts. Mm-hmm. My ego is one of them. I have the inner child and the protector, and this is like more internal family systems theory, mm-hmm. which is a really interesting theory if people are interested in that. And so I need all of those parts. I need all of those elements of myself, but also I am not any one of those. I am the sum of all of those parts in the here and now, and I get to create.
Love it.
Right? It's amazing.
Yeah. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a cool question for you.
Let's do it.
So every episode I have my guest write a question for the next guest.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I'm going to read you the question that my last guest left for you.
Did they know it was for me?
They didn't know it was for you.
Oh, that's sweet.
They just left it for, and I haven't read it yet either.
Oh, you haven't read it?
I don't know what the question is yet.
Maybe you already asked the question.
Maybe. I hope not.
That'd be cool.
Not. Okay, let's see what they got here. Okay, this is a good one. Okay.
Can I ask who was the last guest?
The last guest that I had on. Oh man, it's been like a flurry. Who was the last guest? I can't remember the sequence now of who my last guest was.
We can look at it after.
Yeah, we'll look at it after. Okay. But they left a great question. What is a defining conversation that changed your life? I'll read it one more time, give you a chance to think. What is a defining conversation that changed your life?
I guess there's no right or wrong answer, but I think I've had multiple questions with myself that have changed my life. I think one that I do a lot of work. I'm so grateful to have people in my life who sit with me and allow me to just speak more freely, because I think as much as you can have good friends and mentors and guides and teachers in your life, they will never fully understand and appreciate the sum of all your parts on the bus, on the train. But also, they can't speak for your situation, that's a good friend. A friend that can say, honestly, give you advice and share with you whatever. But they ultimately know that you're the one with the right answer. So I think one of the questions or conversations that I've had with myself that really changed my life was around the ego. And I think it was when I realized that my ego shows up in my pain, and that it uses my pain in a way to rob me from living. Depression. Where it's like, my pain is real. So is yours. For example, think about those separation time and who am I? But I saw and I felt how my ego was hanging on to it. It didn't want to let go of that pain. Mm-hmm. Like, poor me. Look at how I got betrayed. Mm-hmm. And look at, if they only knew how hard I fucking work, mm-hmm. and how much I want to do good, they would never have done that, or I would never have been in this situation, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I'm hanging on to something that now, if it's a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever, however long it was, I'm now in this prison cell of pain, but the only one who's holding the key is me. And my ego is the one that's kind of tricking me and staying in there and saying, you deserve to feel bad because look at the pain. Look at how bad it was. And it's true. The pain is authentic, and it does hurt. And I do deserve to sit in that pain as long as I want. As in it's earned. It's not because I deserve it because I'm bad, but because the situation was bad. And so what was interesting is that I got to a point where I was like, am I sitting in that pain to justify how much love I've lost? To say, well, I can't move on from this pain because that would dismiss how much love I have. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, in fact, the one that's hurting me and choosing to stay in here and repeat this cycle of like, ooh, oh, it hurts so much, and if only this, if only that. That's me, and I'm holding the key of that pain, and I can walk out of that cell anytime. Trouble is that I'll find myself back into that cell sometimes here and there because life, for example, grief, you know what I mean? You lose something, a dog, right? And you're like, oh, like it comes back. So instead of like placing a label of right or wrong, it's just saying, oh, here I am in this cell, and I'm going to give me this cell of pain, this prison cell of pain. I'm going to give myself time to be here and feel it. It's already here, so let me feel it. Great. Mm-hmm. But also to recognize when my ego, the negative ego, is saying, oh, I am quantifying how much I care about X, Y, and Z situation by staying in this painful thing, right? The more I feel pain, the more I care about this. And that's wrong. I don't need to feel pain in order for me to know that I cared about this. But that's just how my ego's tricking me. So then to acknowledge, stay there as long as I choose to, but also make the choice, which is hard, to just step outside of that pain and say, okay, I'm ready to find who I am or be who I am or act in a way where perhaps I'm learning from this pain and moving forward in a good way. So that's the conversation.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
No, I love that.
Yeah.
And I think like what comes to my mind is, again, coming back to this idea of like the rhythm of life. And when we look at pain and pleasure, these like amazing experiences, these beautiful triumphant experiences, love, passion, all those things. And then you look at this like pain and misery and grief and these things. These are rhythms in life that we are inevitably going to go through. Yeah. None of us get to avoid any of them. Yeah. We have to feel love. We have to feel pain. Like it's almost inevitable that we're going to experience these things.
Yeah, if you're alive.
Yeah. And then like coming back to those values, those things that center you back to that original beat. Right?
100%.
I think can really help, whether you're down here and you got to find your way back to that beat using your values and all those beautiful things, or whether you're riding that high and you're like, okay, but like, I know I'm really loving this right now, but like, where are my values? Like, do I need to pull back a bit? Do I need to like find myself again in this relationship, in this friendship, in this business, whatever it might be?
I love that. If I know you're trying to wrap up, but I think the rhythms, one of the ways that I try to speak about rhythms, and I'm actually working on, there's many models out there, but it's a circle model, right? So essentially there's like an axis. It's kind of like the medicine wheel, right? So there's 4 quadrants, and it's a circle all around. And so when I'm on the upper hemisphere of the circle, or the rhythms, things are genuinely good. I have clarity. I know what I'm doing. I have a good idea of what's going on and what my values are, and I feel like I'm doing it. But then, of course, I will inevitably come into this place. And so anyone who is going through some difficult times right now, just know that you may be on this lower part of the circle where you're kind of losing track of that. You're like, what I thought I knew is like, I don't know anything. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And this is painful. And, and so you're going through this cycle. But if you can stay around and stay alive long enough, but also take care of yourself and live well. Because again, in that cell, we can be the ones that keep us in this lower part of this rhythm as well too, right? So we need to recognize that we need to continue to step out. And over time, like usually it's like, the night is darkest before the dawn, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, I never thought I could do this, but you got to keep stepping forward, keep doing the things. And then here I am, boom, back on the, on the other side. And I'm like, and so that's the rhythm, right? So there's this always has a beginning, middle, and an end, whether it's an emotion or perhaps a way of knowing or this thing of certainty and clarity and purpose. And then, like this time of like, difficulty and like loss of direction and who am I? And then, I know now and I'm so clear. And what's really interesting about it is that somehow I forget when I'm down here. But also, I think one of the things that helps me the most is that I need to remember that everything has a rhythm and it's okay for me not to know right now.
Yeah.
The part of me that wants to know is the ego. I want to be right. I want to have the answer. Nope, I don't have the answer right now. And that's okay. I'm down here and that's okay. So then I can give myself permission to be where I am in the pain, but also let it move. And so for anyone who's looking to kind of learn how to move and transition in and out of these rhythms a little bit better, I'm really good at helping with that. Little plug. But also the drumming helps. Yeah. For sure. And the rhythms of life, if we can embrace the rhythms of life, and I think martial arts or swimming or rock climbing or jogging or yoga or breath work, all of these things can help teach us. So let the experience be the teacher.
Yeah. Well, man, I think you're a beautiful soul. I think you will resonate with so many people that you work with. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, totally. So Circles of Rhythm, CIRCLES of Rhythm. Rhythm is spelt, it's not strange, but people don't know how to spell it.
It's a hard word.
RHYTHM. So circlesofrhythm.com is the website. And then if you're in Calgary, every Friday we do a drum circle. Please drop in, show up. We'd love to see you. We do it outside for the months of July, August, and September every Friday. And then in the spring, winter, and fall months, indoors at the Inglewood Hall. And then castlewellness.ca. That's my private mental health clinic. Stay tuned for some groups. We'll be doing a mindfulness boot camp coming up. And then also a self-leadership group as well, which is going to be great. And then individual therapy for anyone who's kind of looking to dive deeper into trauma work and just skills-based stuff. And just to really have somebody who can hold space and perhaps embrace that curiosity, as you mentioned, because I think that's the key. castlewellness.ca and then circlesofrhythm.com.
Love it. And I'll link that all in the show notes so
appreciate
people can find it really easily. But really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again because I feel like we could have gone deep on so many different things.
Absolutely. So. Anytime. Maybe I'll do one at my space.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be good because I'm hoping to do a podcast with Castle Wellness as well.
Amazing.
So,
amazing.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Chat soon.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody for listening and watching. We'll see you in the next episode.